Hi, this is Jeffrey Rakesh. As a life coach, I've had the privilege to work with thousands of people. The youngest I've worked with is a 10-year-old kid, and the oldest I've worked is someone over 70 years. And as a life coach, this has given me a lot of experiences. The beauty of it is to study the brain, the pattern that one creates in the human brain. When I worked with people who are in their teenagers or a little in their middle age or a little over their middle age, I see that there is a pattern that they have created, the pattern that has come to them since childhood, and that brings to the essence of this video, which talks about the importance of parenting. Parenting in today's world is a very important factor that contributes the child's overall development. In fact, parenting has been of vital importance ever since kids have been born. Unfortunately, even today, there isn't a book or one standard way of how a parent needs to be with a kid, because every child is unique, every parent is unique. Somebody who's had, if you look at 3 generations or just 2 generations before us, it was a generation where people used to have kids in the tune of dozens. How many kids do you have? If somebody would have questioned my grandfather has 14 kids. So there still is not a right way or a well-defined way of parenting. However, there are some tips which we can certainly follow that makes the next generations better. Now let us look at what happens. If you've had experience, or if you've been with a toddler, you would see that most of it that you say a kid, hey, don't do this, the kid will end up doing that. Why is it so? And what is the notion that we make? We say, oh, this child doesn't listen to what we say. The fact is not that. The fact is that a child's brain cannot process a not. A child's brain does not understand this. For example, if I ask you, do not remember your mother, what happened? Probably the image of your mother just came in front of you, or you remembered your mother doing something. This is how a child's brain works. A child's brain doesn't understand the meaning of a not. Hence, it is very, very important in the process of parenting that you give the child, or you feed the child with the positive actions that the child has to take. It's better to tell the child, do this, do this, do this, instead of saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Well, at any point of time when you are taking care of a child, whether it is in the toddler stage or in the stage when it is growing up to 10 years or even after that, it is important that you pay absolute attention to what the child is saying. Give complete attention and listen to the child fully. When you are listening to a child, don't be using your mobile for a correspondence or a communication with someone else, or watching the TV or doing something else. Please pay full attention when a child is speaking to you. Do not interrupt the child when the child is talking to you. There is a message that the child wants to convey, and help the child to convey the message to you fully. It's also important that throughout the process of parenting, you build trust with your child. How many times does your child come back to you and tell you everything that it wants to share? It happens so many times that the child is scared to share something. Is there an element of fear that you have built in the mind of a child? By saying, if you don't do this, I will tell this to your dad. And the child eventually starts developing a fear towards the dad. So be careful about the words that you use to talk to the child. I completely understand. I fully understand this is not intentional when you say this. But in the long run, you are programming your child's brain in a way that you don't want it to be. So hence, be very careful about what you talk about with your child. Once you build an element of trust, it's important that you keep a tab on what the child is doing. Most parents I have seen always criticize the child for an action that they don't like. Of course, I do understand there are measures and means where, in the process of parenting, there are issues that the child comes up with which is not right. It is not right. Yes, accept it. Criticize the action, not the child. Criticize the action and tell the child why it was wrong for it to have done such an act. This goes to the next point, which talks about rewards and punishment. Parents also punish their child. Now, what sort of punishment do you use? Do you use a stick and hit the child to punish it, or do you shout loudly on the child? I don't know what format of punishment that you would be using. I'm not saying punishment shouldn't be given. It's okay to have a punishment, but it is good if it is verbal and not in a loud tone. what happens to a child's brain when you do this over a period of time by hitting the child, by abusing the child, by talking to a child in a higher tone, or by screaming at the child, yelling at the child, you eventually curb the creativity of the child, the confidence of the child, and such people grow up to be very, very submissive. They do not open up to the world. They always have a problem of self-esteem and poor confidence. So ensure that you do not shout in a loud tone, or you do not hit the child continuously as a punishment. You can come out with alternates. While I am talking about this, it is very important that you realize it is essential, I would say it's essential to catch the child when it is doing right and reward that. Why do I say this? See, when you study human psychology, when you study the psychology of a brain from childhood to adolescence to old age, at any point of time the human brain or a human being likes to get recognitions. So identify the child doing something right, reward the child. In this process, you are programming the child's brain to work in a way that you would like. You are molding the child to work towards something that is healthy, something that is nice for all of us. At the same time, you also start to teach your kid how to contribution to the society. It might be a very big term when I talk about contribution to the society at this age, but then what is important is the child starts to learn sharing with its friends. Sharing some of its toys, its room, whatever it could be. This is a very important element, because as long as an element of sharing doesn't come with a child, the larger portion of the contribution to the society will continue to remain a dream. And if we are looking forward to a good society, we need to start imbibing those thoughts in our child from childhood. Some parents who come to me who are especially handling teenagers, there are parents who come to me and say, I know my child is started to smoke, started to drink, started to go for some amount of drugs, how do we handle this? It did not happen overnight, it didn't happen yesterday, it has happened over a period of time. So when I go back and ask questions, I find out that there have been flaws in the way they have been parenting. Whether it was intentional, unintentional, doesn't matter. But does that mean that this has to continue, this has to remain, and this doesn't change? Not at all. That is where we use techniques that we've learned from NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, where we start working with the brain. It's like a programmed wire in your brain. So what do? You just cut the wire, replace it with a new wire. We're creating new thoughts and new course of action for a child. That's a longer story on NLP, but keeping ourselves limited to this topic of parenting, my humble request to all the parents out there is to give a lot of love, care and attention to the child. When the small kid needs you to be around, ensure that you have time. You need to also learn the elements of work-life balance, which I would cover in some other video. With this, I think there are some tips that I've given to you about the art of parenting. I would love to see you growing up kids and creating a better society. Your contribution is extremely required to build a better society for us. Thank you for watching this video. This is Jeffrey Rakesh. You can hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos. Thank you.